Hey, this is Stevie Rochelle from Tough and Metal Sludge.
Hey everybody, this is Pat Torpy from Mr. Big.
This is Glenn Hughes, the voice of rock. What's up? This is Dave Rude from Tesla.
And you're listening to Music Mania.
Music Mania. You are locked and loaded on the Music Mania podcast.
Thank you so much, man. I love talking about the things that I love, Clint. And for you to allow me to do it with you, I am the Music Mania podcaster.
You wanted the best! You got the best!
We roll tonight to the guitar fight. And for those about to rock, I salute you.
You ready for some screaming heavy metal? Scream for me, Brazil! Scream for me, Brazil! We rock!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, brought to you by CD Warehouse in Gladstone, the #1 hard rock podcast in the Midwest, featuring hard-hitting interviews with rock's living legends. And now, here's your host, Clint Schweitzer.
So glad to be joining you here on our post-Memorial Day weekend podcast. It is Music Mania. We are so glad to have you on board. And as many of you know, I'm a native Missourian, and I've been reading texts and tweets all week. Hey, were you down at the Lake of the Ozarks? Were you part of the cesspool that's sending COVID-19 back out into the world? You're going to cause a second wave? Millions will die? Well, no, I was not at Lake of the Ozarks. I'll tell you this. You know, of course, I live in Kansas City, which is about 3 hours away or so from Lake of the Ozarks. I was down at Truman Lake, which is a far more subtle way to spend a weekend, you know, maybe more for families and people my age. I'm 36. So I'm not necessarily in the age demographic for the Party Cove, Ozarks types. I love to go down to the Lake of the Ozarks when I can, but I was not there, and I did see a lot of the photos and the videos. It seemed like a crazy time. I'm all for people doing whatever they see fit. If you want to stay home, stay home. If you want to go out, go out. I'm really not a proponent of people's freedoms ending where others' fear begins, but I'm also not about infringing on others as well. There's a delicate balance there. I'm probably more of a fence sitter than anything, so you'll never get me going on very many political topics. But regardless, we trudge along here on the Music Mania podcast, and another week and another tremendous guest, going to be catching up with one of the great bass players in rock history. Billy Sheehan is going to be joining us. This interview is one of destiny, I feel like, because we, of course, had Eric Martin, the singer from Mr. Big, on last month sometime, and it's been cool since then. Like, we've texted back and forth quite a bit, and just, he's such a super cool guy, and I've got to have him back on, trying to get him to co-host an episode here on the Music Mania podcast. We're going to have to make that happen, but I mentioned to him that I'd never had Billy Sheehan on the show. I told him that we had done an interview with Pat Torpy back on the band's 2017 tour when they had done the album Defying Gravity. They did a U.S. tour that summer, and I was able to meet Pat Torpy, the great Pat Torpy, on the tour bus, and did an interview with him there. You can hear that interview in our archives, and this would have been just a few months before Pat passed away tragically. So we, of course, talked with Eric a lot about that, and we're going to be doing the same with Billy. What is the future of Mr. Big, if any at all? Is there a chance for a proper farewell tour? I know it's really a difficult situation when you have a brother and a bandmate like Pat that was so important to them, and they were so instrumental in keeping him positive and motivated as he was battling Parkinson's disease, and he succumbed to his battle with that back in February of 2018. So we're going to be talking some Mr. Big, certainly Sons of Apollo, just a tremendous band, and they have released their latest album 2020. We're going to talk to him about the unbelievable beginning to the year 2020, the album 2020, and then all this happens, and Sons of Apollo had a lot of tour dates postponed by this, and we're going to talk to Billy how it affects all of them and all the bands and kind of the intricacies of the business aspect and what they've had to deal with. And we're going to get into all that and much more. But Sons of Apollo is absolutely tremendous. We've had Jeff Scott Soto on the show before, of course, Bumblefoot on guitars, Derek Sheeran, the great Mike Portnoy on drums. 2020 is a wonderful and suitable follow-up to their 2017 release, Psychotic Symphony. So Billy Sheehan, what more can be said? One of the great bass players in history. He won the Best Rock Bass Player Reader's Poll from Guitar Player magazine 5 times for his lead bass playing style. His repertoire includes the use of chording, two-handed tapping, right-hand three-finger picking technique, and controlled feedback. Guys, technically speaking, there's probably none better in rock, and he's been recognized as such over the years. Of course, a lot of people really have a lot of reverence for his time in David Lee Roth's band, the Edom and Smile lineup, Greg Bissonette, Steve Vai, and we're going to talk to him about a couple times that group has gotten together over the last few years. An incident in 2015, which included Roth himself, where the fire marshals had to be called and they did not allow them to play at this impromptu show. And then they were able to get back together in 2019 without Roth and played, I believe, at a show at NAMM. So a lot to get into. So many other guests coming up on this podcast. We have just been loading them up. We're backloaded with interviews. It's tremendous. So for that, definitely very thankful that we've been able to keep these rolling out during this time, and I hope that it's providing a nice little distraction for you guys each and every week. We've got Ron Keel coming up. I've got Simon Daniels coming up from Autograph, and the legendary guitar wizard from Germany, Axel Rudi Pell, all on the horizon. So keep it with us here on the Music Mania podcast. And without further ado, we've got to take you to our interview this week, which is with the legendary Billy Sheehan. Well, I guess, unfortunately, I've started every interview like this for the past 2 months, but what has the last 2 months been like for you, man? How's it been going, and kind of how have you been affected?
Well, I'm getting a lot of things done on my to-do list around the house. That's for sure.
That's good. There's a positive.
This is the most I've been. The most amount of time I haven't performed live since 1985.
Wow.
When I took all the time off to join David Lee Roth and record that record, the better part of it, almost a year that I didn't perform live. So this is a almost may turn out to be that amount or more.
Well, the year started off so great, Billy. You guys come out with an album, Sons of Apollo 2020. The Chiefs win Super Bowl 54, and then things start heading downhill. I mean, you're trying to ride the wave of momentum from this album, which is tremendous. And then this happens. How many shows or thereabouts kind of has affected you guys so far? I know you had a lot of dates leading up to that, and I'm sure on into the horizon here, and it's just so much uncertainty.
Yeah, we had already done a small run in America, and then we went to Europe. We did 2 shows in Germany, and then I think it was Norway, and then Sweden. The last show was in Sweden. From Sweden, we were going to go to the Ukraine and the Soviet Union, and Russia, not the Soviet Union anymore. Ukraine and Russia, St. Petersburg and Moscow, and Kiev in the Ukraine. But we were watching world events closely, and it looked like there may be a quarantine on America where they would stop people coming in from Europe, and we would be flying out of Frankfurt, which is the main hub for most of Europe. So flights coming out of Frankfurt may not be able to go to the USA. And so we thought, well, if we do get stranded or get into a quarantine, if they quarantine you, they're not going to put you up at the Four Seasons Hotel. They'll probably be in an army barrack somewhere. Who knows? And so we were caught between a rock and a hard place because we wanted to play, but man, it was, what do we do? So, plus you can't just cancel a show. A lot of people, I'm amazed at how few people know anything about how live performances work. We'd be on tour and say, hey, make a left turn and go over to our city. Like, bro, this has to be booked 8 months in advance. And there's got to be a venue, and there's got to be catering and sound and lights and production. You can't just pull up and do a show. It doesn't work that way. It's amazing. And you can't just cancel a show. There's a lot of repercussions. So we thought, well, what can we do? I mean, you're getting in a lot of trouble. The fans have already bought tickets. They already bought plane tickets to fly in to see shows. They've already booked hotels to see the show. The venue is booked. Everybody's booked that day for work. The band has gotten a deposit from a promoter, usually. So you can't just pull the plug on a show. It causes so much trouble in so many ways. So at one point we had to make a decision, the amount of trouble we could all personally be in as opposed to canceling a show. So we decided, well, we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to pull out. Now, it turns out a lot of other bands everybody's waiting for somebody to go first, because everybody wanted to cancel, but nobody wanted the liability. So as soon as we canceled, everybody started canceling. And then the promoters found out also that their cities were shutting down any gathering of people over anywhere from 500 or 200 or 100. They saw these numbers coming at us. So it turns out those shows were canceled no matter what. Even if we would have stayed there, those shows would have been canceled. And so it was good that we did leave, because we would have had to pay for crew, hotels, buses, all that stuff, and have no shows, which meant it would have been a huge financial cost to us. So we were fortuitous in our timing. We got out in time and we got home, and that was that. And we thought, well, we can rebook. Let's start rebooking stuff now. And then it got moved back again and again and again and again until pretty soon we were aware that, man, there's not going to be live shows for a long, long time. So, and there's not, unfortunately. So hopefully it'll come back soon. Most of the people I play with and work with, we're in pretty good shape. Nobody's going to lose their house, but that's us. There's a lot of musicians out there that are going to just be destroyed by this, because they just have no income, and they have house payments to make and kids to feed and all kinds of stuff. So it's really rough on a lot of players. I'm helped out as many as I can in any way I can, but it's going to be tough on a lot of people. And that's just the guys in the band. The crew guys, they're all out of work. The bus drivers, the truck drivers, all the people that work in the venues. So it's really quite a catastrophe.
It really is. And then as the dominoes fall, you start thinking about, well, whenever we can do this again, we have to start the process all over. And then there's risks involved. And now we're putting stuff in the writing and in the contracts about, well, if this gets canceled, now you lose this deposit or that. I mean, it's just going to be, I have a horrible feeling that it's going to be a lot of uncertainty for a really long time. And that hurts. That's terrible.
Yeah, it hurts everybody in so many ways. I guess it's not even a comfort, but the only thing that's not quite so upsetting is that we are all getting hurt pretty much equally, no matter what line of work you're in. To some degree, everybody's is taking a hit, so, and that's horrible, but at least there isn't a group of people that's getting completely destroyed and another group that's prospering. So,
Yeah, you're right about that. You guys are prospering, though, in a way, because you released what I believe is, it came out in January, and I think you can maybe stop the conversation now. Sons of Apollo 2020 as an album of the year candidate. Billy, this is tremendous. Unbelievable follow-up to Psychotic Symphony. To take us through kind of the process of this album. It had been a couple years, and you guys come back with this. Talk about kind of how Sons of Apollo started as an entity. Obviously, you'd been with Mike in the Winery Dogs, and you'd done other things with him. But talk about kind of the genesis of Sons of Apollo and how it came about, and now on into your second album here, which is tremendous.
Well, I'm glad you like it, and we all were very excited at the response we got from this record right from the start. It was very encouraging, very exciting. And you never know, when you put a record out, you can love it and find out later that nobody else does. That happens a lot, or you see another artist and you hear their record and you think, man, this thing is going to be amazing. And it goes nowhere. It's hard to tell. There's many, many factors, not just that record is good, but all the business that surrounds it and the timing and who else has a record out and what the situation is. And there's a lot of things that can affect the success or failure of a record. But right up front, the response was really great. So we were set up for what I thought was going to be a very, very successful run. We all did. The reviews we got and the response we got, and then the short tour we did in the USA prior to going to Europe, we were selling out shows all over the place, and the response was over the top. So I thought, this is cool. We put a lot of work in on that first tour. We hit it hard. That was a grueling and tough tour. I would have crushed lesser men. Trust me. We had scheduling and travel arrangements that were cruel. It was tough, but we got it. We got through it. We played, and so it felt extra good to us. It's kind of a little bit of a payoff for the amount of work and trouble we went through on the very first tour. So we were all excited, and then it all came crashing down, sadly, when we had to stop playing. And the show also was really together, because we'd already had the experience of doing a whole tour and a whole record before. So no, coming out the second time, we knew each other better. We knew how the show should run. We were geared up and grooved in. And so it made it extra devastating that we had to pull the plug on it.
Well, just the players. I mean, everybody looks at Sons of Apollo and looks at the lineup of you guys that you guys have, and it's just absolutely tremendous. You've worked with some of the best vocalists. You work with some of the best musicians in the business, and talk about that dynamic, because you got a guy like Jeff Scott Soto, who's just so renowned. Bumblefoot, just a virtuoso. Derek, of course, you played with before, and Mike Portnoy. I mean, these guys also tremendous, and just describe the dynamic of what it's like working with these guys. Obviously, there was chemistry there. Obviously, something worked because you came back for a second album. So, what's it like?
Well, we all we kind of look at it a little bit differently. We don't, look at each other as, in awe, because because we share a dressing room, so we know there's nothing to be awe about. But, no, I'm kidding. But in fact, we just kind of let each other. It kind of builds confidence when we look around and we see people around us that we know can do the gig and they can do their thing, and people love the thing that they do, and it makes everybody feel comfortable, and it kind of takes pressure off when each one of us is surrounded by guys that alone could probably, do pretty darn good in front of an audience without anyone else, So it's good to know. So it's kind of confidence building. And so once we got through that first tour and first record, got into this record, we felt good. We felt tight. We felt a good, strong bond with each other. And the live shows were so together in our minds that we could start to have fun with them. We didn't sit there and think through every little hard, difficult part. And so Ron and I, sometimes we do some wildly complicated double guitar bass harmony thing. We purposely had to look at each other and laugh, or I'd step on his foot, or he'd push my bass as a joke, because we built this confidence up, and the confidence comes from doing the first record and tour, and this record, and just seeing the kind of response we're getting from people. So it's a blast to play. I always watch Mike closely. I'm all about the drums mostly as a bass player. Mm-hmm. And we get these magic moments where he does a riff and I do the same riff, even though have never done it before, didn't plan it, I didn't know he was going to do it. He didn't know I was going to do it. And we do this thing that matches up perfectly. And we look at each other like some kind of weird ESP thing just happened. And it happens all night. It's really cool. The bass and drum connection is amazing. Derek, amazing player. He's got all the bases covered. Ron, mind-blowing, and then Jeff on top as a vocalist. I love his voice in this band because it's not a typical kind of a proggy voice. It's got a soul to it and a rhythm to it and a depth to it and real harmonic content and character. So it really does make the songs, to me, it makes them much more than what they might have been with someone else.
Well, Billy, I want to talk a little Mr. Big. After all, it was the incomparable Eric Martin that got this interview underway. I told him I'd never had you on, and within like a couple hours, we're texting back and forth and setting this up. So love Eric, great guy. And it's been a couple years, obviously. Right? It's unbelievable. It's been over 2 years since we lost Pat Torpy, and obviously what a loss that was. Just talk to us about Pat, what he was like as a person. I was there in Kansas City. You guys played at Knuckleheads that summer, and I was able to come and do an interview with Pat on your guys' bus, and was so fortunate to be able to meet him and do that interview in person. And now here we are 2 years later. Just talk about him as a person. Obviously, we know what a player he was.
Yeah, yeah, amazing player, and equally or maybe even more amazing person. He was a wonderful husband to his wife and an incredible dad to his kid, and he was my closest friend in music for the last 30 some years that we've been together. Pat and I didn't grow up together, but we grew up in a complete parallel universe. He started in Cleveland, I started in Buffalo. We played the same type of things in the same kind of bands out there, slugging it out in the clubs. So we had a lot in common. And he lived close to me there in LA when I lived there. We both I lived in Studio City, Sherman Oaks area. We both did, and what just a great guy. And we were glad that he was in agreement to continue on with us as long as he could, because I think he realized, and we certainly realized, that you got to keep going. You can't let it win. You know, it's going to be tough. And I remember the last few shows we did together, like going up the stairs to the stage, I'd make sure to always be behind him because he was getting frail and losing his balance a little bit. And I would always be there ready to grab him no matter what, and he was pushing himself hard. And I could see that it was tough, getting tougher and tougher for him. So towards the last couple of shows we did, I remember we had a long conversation in the dressing room. And he said, I don't know if I can do it anymore. And I said, well, the moment you want to pull the plug, you tell us and we'll stop. But we're here for you, and we want you to continue on as long as possible because you got to have a reason to get up. And he knew, because when you get on stage, you get a special kind of energy you can't get anywhere else. And he was getting it. He'd get on stage, and suddenly he felt better. And off stage, though, it was tough. It was really tough. It's tough for Parkinson's. It just kind of taxes your whole system and your mind, and the movement and the shaking. It's just so much information going back in your nervous system to your brain that you just get exhausted. And he would just, in the dressing room before the show, he would be just out asleep, just trying to catch a few Z's because he was exhausted. And it was tough seeing him kind of withdraw a little bit. We kept engaging him and kept, getting involved with him and talking with him and doing anything we can to make it easier for him. But like I said, we also said, the moment you can't do it, Pat, you just tell us and we'll pull the plug. So we did manage to end a whole section of touring. And then he went home, and then that's, unfortunately, when he passed away, I was already out on tour with Sons of Apollo when I heard about it, and we were all crushed completely. And so the world lost a great man and a great player, and we all of us in Mr. Big think about him every day.
Well, and you guys were able to get an album out, Defying Gravity. We've had Eric on, and I don't think that he was as pleased with the album as he thought it could have been better. What was your thoughts on Defying Gravity, and are you okay basically just kind of leaving Mr. Big as it was there, any type of proper farewell tour? I know you talk to Eric, regularly. I mean, is there any chance that a proper farewell tour could happen?
Well, I don't know. There's no reason why myself, Paul, and Eric couldn't go out to get a drummer and go out again, or just go out on our own. But I don't know I don't know what Paul thinks, and I don't know what Eric thinks about it. I'm open to going out and taking care of the fans as best we can, because they really put their heart and souls into this band, and we'd love to go see them again. As far as the record goes, we fell into a trap again with a label, had to have the record by a certain day. And that has ruined so many records. And if the label would just realize the record isn't ready to go yet, you've got to give us more time. Instead, they insist on having it and putting it out when it's not ready, because we had a problem with mastering. We took it to a mastering place. I was there for the final mixes, and they were killer. The mastering came back, and what in the world happened? It was unlistenable. And so they tried to do like a second mastering, and that didn't quite work, but then they had to ship it off. And I thought that the label ruined the record because they insisted on having it. If we had another day to get it to the proper mastering and get it done right, would have been fine, because I was there for the final mixes. We went in every day and listened to mixes. Pat was there with us too, and we went through the mixes, and they were sounding great. And unfortunately, we got screwed. And I've seen it before in many other situations with many other bands. You know, we got the marketing department, and they're ready to go, and they got to have their record now. And then I've also seen other bands just say, "No, record's not done. You're out of luck." And I wish we would have just said that, because I just don't think the record had the kind of life it had when I heard it in the final mixes. I thought there were some great songs on the record. I thought, "Be Kind" was a great piece of music. I thought that could be kind of a hit anywhere too. It was really, really great, and some good stuff on there. Some stuff I didn't really. I thought the title track, "Defying Gravity," didn't do much for me. I wouldn't have picked that as a title track. It was that little oddball time signature thing didn't work for me as a regular straight up rock song. It, so it was certainly not my favorite Mr. Big record. But I think if we wouldn't have gotten screwed on the mastering, it would have been a lot better. And we had to defend it. A couple people were commented right away, "Oh man, this record sounds horrible." And I'm like, what am I going to do? Agree with them? I got to defend it, and stick up with them and stick up for the record. But in our hearts, we knew that didn't sound like, I knew it didn't sound like the final mixes I had. The producer, Kevin, was heartbroken because we couldn't get the label to give us more time to get it mastered properly. So there went that record.
Well, you also you had the live album, Live in Milan, which at least you have that final tour kind of captured. But was that just another obligation to the record label as well, or what was up with that?
I'm not sure, but I know that when we've done live records, we usually done them in a situation where we had a lot more control over what was going on. And in this case, we just didn't. And there were missteps there too. I just don't think the record was a representation of what the band was doing. And I'm not sure if the band was really firing on all 8 cylinders at that point either, because our heads were spinning with the situation at hand. So if I had it to do over again, I probably would have skipped doing that record. But, it has its moments. It has some good stuff, but it was, our heads were spinning at that point. We're on tour, and we don't know what's going to happen with our drummer. And man, it was tough.
Well, I know this has probably been a year and a half ago or so. I think you and Steve Vai and Greg Bissonette got together. I think it was an Ultimate NAMM night you guys did back in January of 19. The Edom, David Lee Roth, the Edom and Smile Band got back together. Was this the night, or was this a separate incident? Because I remember hearing about this where there was you guys were going to play, and there was a fire marshal, and there was the fire marshals cut it off. Was that the same night, or was this a separate occasion?
Separate occasion.
Okay.
Not related in any way.
Not related. So the first one, the fire marshal one, David Lee Roth was there.
Yeah, we were ready to go on stage.
Yeah, that's right.
Curtain across the stage. Me and Steve are on there. Greg is at the top. Brett Tuggle is there. Dave's on the side of the stage, ready to come up. And I saw the something out of the corner of my eye with some flashlights. And the club normally would hold, and it's free to get in. It's free to get in. So the club isn't making money at the door. So I don't know why they decided to let so many people in. Because legally, I think the place held 475 or 500 people. They'd let them get away with maybe 550 or 600 on a good night. But they had almost 1,200 people in there. If there would have been a problem, somebody would have died. So the fire, I guess, I don't know how they find out about it, but somebody must have called it in, or somebody observed that there was maybe a competing club or something like that. They watch each other and report each other. Who knows how it happens? I don't know. But the fire department came in and said, "Shut it down, everybody out." And so some guy got on the mic and tried to go, "Good evening, volunteers to leave." Nope, nobody's leaving. We're standing right here. That shit ain't gonna work. And so I played a couple bass notes, hoping the crowd would maybe cheer, because we're behind a curtain still, kind of cheer. And the fire department would say, "Oh, let's let them play." And one of the fire guys looked behind the curtain and said, "One more note out of anybody and you go to jail." I said, "Okay." I unplugged. and left. But we got to hang, the original band, backstage, hanging out, just to telling stories. Me, Steve, Greg, Brett, and Dave, and we had a great time hanging out. And he would have done the one in January, but he's had a commitment elsewhere in New York and couldn't make it. So unfortunately, we couldn't do it.
So there's something about there's such reverence for that lineup, and it's just crazy. After all these years, you keep hearing, well, David Lee Roth, Edom and Smile. I mean, obviously, Steve, yourself. I mean, it's amazing players. When you look back on that time, and where were you at musically when you joined David Lee Roth? This is pre-Mr. Big. You joined this, David Lee Roth, Lee's Van Halen. Where were you at sort of in your career, and kind of what led you to that band?
Well, Talus was my band from Buffalo. We had just gotten a lot of breaks. We got signed by the William Morris Agency. We got signed by Gold Mountain Records. And we also we're opening up for Yngwie on his first tour, double kind of a headliner thing. And it was going great. And the places were sold out. And we were playing our asses off. And we were playing, really pushing ourselves. So my hands were in amazing shape. I was on the top of my game. Everything was cool. Then I got asked to join with Dave. And I said I'd never leave my band Talus unless Van Halen asked me to join. And so when Dave asked me, I said, well, close enough. I'm going to go. And so I went and did it. So I already had gotten up to a point of, a lot of national press and things breaking for me and doing well and touring across the country. And so I was in pretty good shape. So when Dave called me to go and play with him, it was, we were in a good state. I was in a good state of mind and a good state of playing and ready to go. And that band launched like a lightning bolt, and it was a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. I tell you what, Billy, before we let you go, we got to finish with our final 4 drum roll, which is final 4 quick questions, and you kind of just rapid fire, give us whatever comes to mind.
Ready to go.
If you're ready, absolutely. If at all, what show have you been able to binge watch during the pandemic?
Oh, I watched the Tiger King. I had to do it.
You did? Oh, I haven't yet. So I guess I'll use you as my final example. If you give me the go ahead, I guess I'll go ahead and do it. So it
really is it's a complete train wreck. It's amazing.
Perfect. I'm in. What is the first album you remember purchasing with your own money?
I think it was Having a Rave Up with the Yardbirds.
Ooh.
One of the first Yardbirds records.
That is a great one. Favorite Mr. Big song to perform live?
I might say the Daddy Brother Lover Little Boy has always been a favorite of mine with the drills.
What is the last show that you either attended as a fan or played in before all this happened? I'm guessing it would have been obviously a Sons of Apollo show, but was there a show you went to as a fan before this that you can remember?
Let's see. Well, I went to see the Zac Brown Band, and he had me come up on stage and play with them.
Wow, that's awesome. What happened there? That sounds amazing.
They played a sold-out Bridgestone Arena here in Nashville, and their percussion player is a friend of mine. So I said, come on down, bring your bass, and we'll play. Zach will invite you up, and we'll play Whipping Post. And Zac Brown was incredibly generous and kind, and he gave me a wonderful introduction, brought me up on stage, and I played Whipping Post with the Zac Brown Band. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Billy, man, thanks so much for taking the time and doing this with us, my friend. Best of luck. We'll definitely. Oh, it's been a true honor as someone that's followed your work for so many years.
Very kind of you. Well, when you have a link to it in any capacity, just text it to me and I'll post it so you get lots of clicks.
Oh, that's what it's all about. I'm trying to find the blabbermouth clickbait headline out of this right now. We'll see. No, I'm just kidding, of course. Hey, man, thank you so much. We'll catch up again.
All right, we'll talk again soon. Have a good one. Stay safe. All right, take care.
Well, big thanks to Billy Sheehan for joining us this week, and for Eric Martin for getting it set up. The next thing I know, Eric Martin is sending Billy Sheehan my number and saying, hey, hit this guy up. He wants to have you on the show. And within a couple weeks, we've made it work. And Billy was really so generous with his time to talk about everything, all the inner workings of what's going on with Sons of Apollo. We sure hope that we can get things back to some level of normalcy at some point, because their new album 2020 demands, it deserves to be played live in a live setting. So Sons of Apollo have been quite the touring entity since their inception in 2017. We hope for more for them. We hope you guys are maintaining a lot of positive morale during this time. Hey, Memorial Weekend's in the books. We are often running into the summer months here. So things are reopening. If it's your will, if it's what you want to do, get out and enjoy it. It's great weather all over the country. If you want to go to the lake, get out there with your friends, have some fun. I know we're not going to have any live music this summer. In fact, I believe Motley Crue, Def Leppard, the stadium tour is the only tour thus far to not completely postpone or cancel for the summer. That announcement should be coming within a few days, and we'll see exactly how it's worded or what the exact situation will be. But with that said, your money stays and plays with us right here on the Music Mania podcast. So many great interviews coming up. We have got you locked and loaded right here, so keep it with us all summer long right here on the Music Mania podcast.